apologies for 131. It's amazing what happens when you don't hit a button that you think you hit. So welcome to Thursdays with Niko on a Friday. And yes, as Sean Vergara would say, it would be Friday. And that would drive Jason crazy. Jason hopefully is on his way to Toronto and getting there safely for the broadcast with Toronto FC. And they're hosting Atlanta United tomorrow night. And 7:39 start on Apple TV. And it's on the free side for Apple TV for those of you that are keeping an eye on things. Niko Moreno coming up in just a little bit, where we have Niko from our friends at Pulso Sports on the Soccer Bar dropping by. And it is one of those where it is Thursdays with Niko on a Friday. We drop through everything that's on his mind when it comes to the Western perspective of things. Obviously, we've got CONCACAF Champions League to get into, and we have the Final Four there. We have our matchups. We've got our times as to when those are going to be integrated into the schedule. And good news for Philly is that they've got a bye week after the matchup, where they don't have to, after number one, I believe. I think after first leg, they don't have a bye. And then that way, they do have a bye. LAFC does not. So LAFC, that may end up giving them some questions as they go when it comes to their starting 11s and what they look like for Steve Cherundolo as they are chasing after a final either against Tigres or León on the other side of the bracket when it comes to CONCACAF Champions League. So thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us here. Once again, any questions that you have for me or for Niko when it comes to Major League Soccer, and we'll go through it. We always go cliffhanger. We do red light, yellow light, green light. Sometimes it changes. Sometimes it doesn't. As we look backward before we go forward into looking into all these different kinds of things. And you have some interesting matchups that we talk about here in SDH. After last week, there's still some questions. There's still some wonderings out loud as to what's going on. Last night in the CONCACAF Champions League, it was a Tigres eventually beating Motagua by the final of 5-0, 6-0 on aggregate. Once the first goal was scored, then Motagua had to chase, and it just got ugly in a hurry in the second half. So Tigres with the win 5-0, 6-0 on aggregate, and that's why they move into the right-hand side in the semifinal there. Atlas and Philadelphia was a back-and-forth game at Estadio Jalisco. 3-2 on aggregate for Philadelphia Union. Atlas on the day had a 1-0 lead, lost it, came back to tie it at 2-2 by the time it was done, but it was 3-2, and the road goals really helped out Philadelphia in that manner. LAFC over Vancouver Whitecaps 3-0 both legs. So literally it was 3-0, 3-0, and it was 6-0 on aggregate there. And Violette, you got to give Violette a lot of credit. First and foremost, they hadn't played in their league in, I think it was 289 days. So they qualify, they get in, they knock out Austin, which stunned a lot of folks, also stunned a lot of folks in Austin. Then Violette makes it to the round of 8 to take on León, and it was 4-1 after the first leg. They play the second leg at the Estadio Cibao in the Dominican Republic because obviously facilities in Haiti are difficult to come by, and infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. So all those things that you need to have for these kinds of competitions. So they came up with, once again, playing at the Estadio Cibao, where Violette had great success against Austin, getting the 3 goals and the 3-0 lead coming into play. But Violette wins 2-1 in the Dominican Republic, 6-2 on aggregate. And then also back on Tuesday, Chicago House with the upset over Forward Madison by the final of 3-2 in Open Cup play. And, because it is time, it's time to see if I can get my fancy TV graphics squared away where we can sit there and introduce this guy on a Friday. Beat 2, 3, 4. It's like you hear the thunder and the lightning and the sizzle and everything, and it takes like 90 extra seconds before we can bring in Niko Moreno. Niko, my friend, welcome back.
Hey, what is going on? I had a little bit of trouble with my lighting. That's why it took so long, but I want to make you wait no longer. But you might look at me like a ghost or something like that. But excited to be here with you. Obviously, rivalry weekend here in the Pacific Northwest. Cascadia coming up, the greatest rivalry in MLS without a doubt. Some CCL, another MLS final on one end, MX on the other. Some other subjects that are a little bit more sensitive, but a lot going on in MLS. So just excited to be here with you and sharing this glare in my face.
All right, so we'll only do the glare for a half an hour, so that way you can regain your sight after 30 minutes talking about everything. Going back into the week that was before we go into the week that will be, we talked about it on the show this morning. Jarrett and I did, and got into it. Also, we discussed it with Michael Parkhurst when he came on, and we got into the Von Zier discussion. Admittedly, there is a lot that we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know, because we can sit there and Zapruder film, we can sit there and analyze film and try to lip read and figure out what folks are saying with their hands and all this kind of stuff. And there's some conversation that we know, but right now, Von Zier, 6 matches, as we wait for further investigation from Major League Soccer, and we know that all these other elements are here that are a part of the discussion. So, yeah, that's where we are.
I think what we've learned is that there needs to be a better job to handle the situation in real time when it happens. I understand that you want to have as much information as you can in as little time as you can possibly do it. But the fact that Van Zier was able to stay and that Stewart didn't think that it was important to just take him out of the game, and you could see, like you said, we're not going to go ahead and get into the video and what maybe some of his teammates were trying to get at. But at the end of the day, I think when there is a serious allegation of any sort of abusive language and racial slurs specifically, there needs to be something more in conversation with coaches to just let them know, hey, in order to have the least time taken away from the game, in order to really get to the bottom of things, just take the player off. I think that MLS and players are professional enough that they're not going to use this as a tactic. That the subject's too sensitive, things like that are not just going to go and be used to get a player off. So let's take the subject of something that should be completely removed from this planet, not just soccer in general, and have a better way of handling it. Because it was just kind of honestly disappointing to see how the coach handled it. And you could see Luchi Gonzalez's frustration when the ref is talking to him. So we just need to be better. I am proud, and I got to give credit to MLS that, and we talked about this in Soccer VAR this week, that there is such protocols, that there is such an emphasis on not allowing that sort of language to be part of the game. That's not something you see in every league. And I think it's not a coincidence that every time that we've seen it lately, it's with players that have just arrived in MLS.
Yeah.
Maybe because they're used to being able to say this, because it doesn't get taken as seriously as it does in MLS. So I really applaud that from Major League Soccer and their approach to such a ignorant and misuse of language in those moments.
Yeah, and we also found this in Champions League at the end of Atlas and Philadelphia Union. And the center ref in that match, I will give him both the people's eyebrow and roses because of the lack of calling persistent infringement once again involving Philadelphia Union and simulation and all those issues that we always constantly seem to run into with how they are working as a part of their pitch dynamic. We know that is who Philadelphia is. That is their DNA. But at the same time, late in the Atlas Philadelphia match, as Atlas is chasing, and you end up with very, very angry fans after a VAR review and the goal stays. Once again, as Philadelphia, I think, was up 3-1 at that point. Atlas would eventually score to make it 3-2. You get a goal kick, and for the last, say, 5 or 6 minutes of the match, you got that word coming from the Liga MX crowd after goal kicks were launched into the air. You did have protocol followed by the public address, but once again, and it didn't quite get to the point to where you're pulling folks off, because I think at that point, center ref was just like, let's get this over with. Let's get him out the door. And, we're this close. We'll just go ahead and do it. Then we'll let CONCACAF take care of business after the fact with what they view and what they saw with what we had on the broadcast. But once again, that word was used by a Liga MX crowd. And we talk about how words have meaning, and we had it in Major League Soccer. We've had it in Liga MX as well. Once again, that word has no place. I understand its historical context when it comes to it, but these words have no place in this sport. And we saw it again in both Liga MX and disappointingly in Major League Soccer.
Yeah, all discrimination verbiage should be just completely relegated from the game. And, sometimes we see and we hear, and, as a Latino speaking to a lot of Mexican fans, they sometimes are a little bit oblivious to it, and they say, it's just tradition and it's what you say. But come on, let's get progressive. Let's jump into this century and realize that there's no need to do that. And when it gets used that late in the game, I think it's also trying to slow down things and make the referee try to stop the game and all of these other situations. So it's just tough. I am with you. It's not easy to be a ref. It's not easy to call a game that was as chippy and intense and suspenseful and actually a really good game at times. And then have to deal with that as well. Do I call it? They're up, but they're getting close. Quinones was getting close to just putting a couple away. He just wasn't able to really do it. So it was a tough game to call. I'm with you. I'd probably give him more credit than anything, just to try to get guys to finish the game, and hopefully CONCACAF will get to the bottom of it and maybe make some sanctions for Atlas.
And at the same time, I think you saw the fastest double yellow in recent history when, Atlas lost the plot. You literally had, it was like blackjack dealer drops midnight on you with a 10 and a 2, and you're like, split them, and you get hit again, and you get the king, and you that was the fastest double yellow I've seen in quite some time, but it was deserved in the heat of that moment.
Yeah, it's CONCACAF for sure, and definitely deserved. I like the character and the personality of the referee to not even flinch or, stutter, to just say, "Here you go, sir. You know what you did. Get out of my field." That's why I think that I'm with you. I would give actually more credit than anything to this referee because of the way he handled the entire game.
All right, so your Final Four in CONCACAF Champions League. LAFC Philadelphia on one side. You had Leon and Pumas, Tigres on the other side. And, it's shaping up to be fun, but I think that's what CONCACAF was looking for. You're looking for the best in one country on one side, the best in one country on the other side. The survivors meet in the final.
Yeah, and Philadelphia has to be better, man. I once again, I can talk about how great the team did by being effective in the chances they created, and Carranza doesn't get a lot of opportunities, but when he did, he put them away. I thought Ure's ability to just move the ball and that goal where he just keeps possession, baits in the defender and sets up Carranza is just textbook. So it's great. Midfield did awesome in terms of being able to stay disciplined, control the gaps in midfield, which wasn't easy because this team is extremely quick and they get in transition very fast. And the ability of Brujo Martinez just playing CONCACAF soccer. You need one of those guys to be out there and doing a little bit of that work. Bedoya also a lot of I can see that he's maybe lost a step, but he's really tailored his game to be very effective on the things he does for this Philadelphia Union team. But once again, defensively, they were caught too high too many times. I think that the wing play defensively and active defending can definitely use some work. And going against an LAFC team that's going to exploit you out wide, they got a guy like Bouanga that's just in crazy form. It's Super Saiyan. I mean, the guy has gone incredible this season. So they're going to have to really do better against LAFC. And on the other side, it's kind of what you expected. Two of the top clubs. I like Leon in their demeanor, the way they play the game. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to talent. And if there's a team that has it, it's Tigres. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting.
I have to keep an eye on Tigres because of Gignac and his not following rules of engagement for crossing from Mexico to the United States. If Tigres makes it to a final, Tigres is going to have
that's a good one. Absolutely. Yes, that's something that has been an issue, and you think it'd get resolved at some point, and you think that you'd be already doing some of those diligences. But yeah, that's a team that has a lot of firepower as well. I mean, from Pizarro, Luis Quiñones, which is not as good as Julian Quiñones, in my opinion, but he's still pretty good. Gignac, they got a solid defensive line. Noel Guzman, who's another guy that is very good at the dark arts and, handles things well in the goal. So it's going to be a good game. But I definitely see a Tigres LAFC final in this one.
All right. So red light, yellow light, green light, go. From for those that may not be able to listen to us on a weekly basis, what we like to do before we go forward, we go backward. We look at the results of the last week, and we sit there and I go red light, yellow light, green light, and we try to figure out, okay, who does Niko sit there and go, I'm really high on? Who gets to plow through the intersection without any problems? Who's the yellow light, the one that's kind of sitting there and going, do I go into the intersection? Do I cross? Do I keep going into traffic? Or who's got the red light, the one that where the smoke is coming out of the back of the car? You sit there and you might lose the transmission a little bit. You have to turn the car over during the red light when you're waiting for the light to change. This is where red light, yellow light, green light comes into play. Which end of the spectrum would you like to start? Would you like to start red light and go red, yellow, green, or go green and go green, yellow, red?
Let's start red, man, because there's a bunch of clubs that are stuck on red and might never move in red. And I'm going to do my best to not talk about the exact same team. So I've given it a lot of thought. I've hit LA Galaxy enough. I said it last week. I told you it was going to happen, and it was worse. I mean, before I give you my red light team, I have to just say that Greg Vanney and this LA Galaxy team just have lost their way. They have no leadership. What Cáceres did was childish. And
how do you violate that space and basically walk up to the ref in the VAR bubble and go, bruh? Literally, it's like you're tapping him on the shoulder. Bruh, what's going on? Bruh, what are you doing?
You have no respect for your teammates. You have no respect for a group that's trying to find some momentum and get some soccer going, and that was waiting for Javier Hernandez to come in at some point and start to do some work. And you just throw a lot away. You try to be, I'm not sure if to call you childish or to just say that you are just dumb, or I'm not sure how to call it, but it's just something that you don't do. He's too experienced. I do think that is more of a tantrum of saying this is who I am, deal with it type of situation. I think it's awful. Then Douglas Costas does it when the game is already over and done with. It kind of felt to me like Douglas Costa threw in the towel.
Yeah.
Douglas Costa said, you know what, this train is going nowhere. Let me jump off.
Yeah.
So it's sad. But that's not my red light team because I've talked about it before. Montreal, we've talked about it enough as well. So I'm going to go with Inter Miami.
Okay.
And it's probably not anything that no one was expecting. I like the move for Kamal Miller, but it tells me that this group with Phil Neville has so many different versions of what they want to be that they don't know who they are. They've lost their identity. What was working last year, you don't have the players to replicate because Pozuelo is a guy that you don't have in your roster right now.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to replace him with what you have. You lost Gregory, which was your anchor, your compass, what gave you balance. And now you're trying to just deal with whatever you have. And I think bringing in Kamal Miller tells me that this team's going to start playing with three in the back, which I don't think fits some of their better players. So, all in all, I'm going to give them the red light for this one because of the 5-game losing streak, of course, but because I don't see them even remotely knowing which way they want to go.
Yellow light. Who's having engine problems and needs to go to the mechanic?
You know what? I'm gonna go with RSL, man. I realized that it was just one game. It was against Charlotte. That maybe parts of that game were a little bit circumstantial, right? But I really like Pablo Ruiz. I like Jefferson Severino. He's a stud. I just like the individual talent that one is very cohesive. I think it's buying in finally into what you needed. You're getting some players back. And then you have some of the players that you brought on that are beginning to show that they can handle things and that they're trying to adapt to the league. So I look at the system and I look at the players and I really see a yellow team here that can start getting hot and maybe start seeing a little bit of improvement from here on out in the season.
All right. So then who, when you're lined up, when you're ready to do the quarter mile against Dom Torero in Fast and the Furious, if Dom's off to your left, you think you've got the car, even if it is a 1987 Honda Accord, who is going to beat Dom down the quarter mile and get his pink slip to add to his group and his folder? Who's got the green light for you right now?
Once again, because I went with LAFC last week, I'm not going to do that again. And I'm going to rightfully and deservingly talk about the Seattle Sounders.
Okay.
Call me a homer. This one is very earned by a team that completely dismantled what many call the decoding system of MLS, that they were this amazing new nuance in terms of pressure, and Seattle just handled it. Seattle showed the new kids on the block who really reigns the neighborhood. They were able to, in the first half, adapt to a lot of things differently. This team played with three in the back, which Seattle was not expecting. The way they pressure was a little bit different. They kind of, when they pressure, was a 3-4-3. Were low and would press in between Nicolas Giochini and Joao Klaus, and they got a lot of guys forward. They created some mistakes, and Seattle was able to correct in the moment to prevent clear chances, and then later in the second half, expose those gaps that were being left behind the first line of pressure. They did a lot of things. They didn't just play possession. They play long balls. We talked to Stephen Fry about going 50-50 balls, and it was pretty cool the way he said, look, I'm trying to make it 60-40. I'm depending on who I'm passing the ball, it's not just blowing it up. I'm thinking, okay, this is what Christian does well. This is what Jordan likes the ball. The spin on the ball, am I going to bring it in, curving inside? Am I going to put it up beyond him? So they really practiced on being able to be a little more direct. And then they just took over. I mean, they really gave the business to this team in the second half. Le dieron un baile, we say in Spanish. They just put them to dance. I mean, it was just unbelievable the way they just were able to find connections. Raul Ruidiaz came on. He did fantastic. I thought that he was a game changer for me. Leo Chu and Jordan Morris were not as effective because of the three-man back line, and because although St. Louis was pressing high, they were very aware of where Jordan was going to attack spaces. And then Leo Chu, in the couple of times he had opportunities to make a difference, he didn't. Once Raul came on, things completely changed. The link play was better. Spacing was a little bit better. You got a guy like Jordan Morris that has the ability, and not just the ability, but it's easy for him to cut inside and take a shot with his right foot, something that Leo didn't have. So many things changed for this team, and they just dominated this San Luis team because of the depth, because of the changes that Brian can do, because now you have the ability to play direct, to play possession, to do so many things. Seattle gets the green light for me, no doubt about it.
All right, so now it's time, as we always like to do. We always wrap up Thursdays with Niko by playing cliffhanger. We go through the list of matches. If there's anything that strikes Niko's fancy when it comes to the match itself, the juice boxes that are attached, or anything having to do with it, we yell stop. Niko talks about it. Very, very busy weekend. And the team that you did not mention in your red light, obviously, and the green light, we're going to talk about them at the end because round one of El Tráfico is on Sunday afternoon. So we'll talk about that one when we wrap things up. Looking at your action on your Saturday, Charlotte and Colorado. This one's at B of A. And Charlotte is a plus 104. Colorado's a plus 250. Your draw's a plus 258. I'm thinking Charlotte because Colorado on the road is a bit of an adventure for me.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm thinking Charlotte. Not an exciting game for me either. It's probably going to be a 1-0 very low scoring game because, yes, Colorado on the road is can be very diverse. They could be very good defensively. They could try to get forward, and they got some guys back as well. But at the end of the day, I think Charlotte is starting to take steps forward. I'm not incredibly high on them, but I think they have enough to win this game against Colorado.
Next one on the board, sneaky good. But the thing is that most folks would sit there and look at Columbus in New England and go, what? But, I mean, this one's a sneaky good game in the East right now. Crew at the Death Star are a plus 108. Revs are a plus 258. Your draws are plus 237. This one should be a good one, at least when you look at the records.
No, this one's really good, I think. You have two fantastic coaches, one new age, one old school. Both, I think, in this moment in time have to be in the ballot for Coach of the Year because of what they've been able to do. Wilfred Nancy specifically just using young players, developing them, rescuing players like Vallecilla, an Ecuadorian center back that seemed like he couldn't cut it in MLS, was in Cincinnati, was in Colorado, and now he's starting 3 games in a row for Columbus. I even got him in my fantasy team. That's how good he's been.
Wow.
Because of Wilfred Nancy. Love the midfield. Aiden Morris as having a tremendous season. He's this box-to-box midfielder that's dynamic. Now he even gets a call-up to the national team. I mean, this Columbus team is very good. So I'm excited to watch this game. I think because of the dynamic play by Columbus and having a guy like Lucas Larajan that can just break you down completely with 1-2 touches, back heel movement, set pieces. I'm going to give them the edge on this one. I would actually put a decent amount of money on Columbus against the Red Bulls because you might get some really good odds.
Yeah, Columbus right now against the Revs are a plus 108. So Columbus on the plus side at home with the Revs at a plus 257. If it's okay with you, I think that we can put Montreal and DC in the wastebasket.
Oh, please. Go ahead.
Red Bulls and Houston is interesting because of the start with Ben Olsen coming out of the blocks at 3-3. Red Bulls, obviously, with everything swirling around them this week, they're the heaviest. They are the largest favorite at home this week in Major League Soccer at a minus 147. Houston's north of plus 420. That number's come down a little bit, but Houston's still north of plus 420 on the road at Red Bulls.
I'm very curious for this one because you could possibly take a really bad situation and turn it good if you are a leader in that locker room. Vance here, to be quite frank, I mentioned it last week before this even happened. I don't feel like he fits what the Rebels want to do per se. He's not someone that I think that they're going to incredibly miss, despite the money that you've already paid, the commitment there. Of course, that investment is what you're missing on the field. But in terms of play, man, I just think that he was still adapting. He was out of sorts. He mentioned that he wasn't really comfortable playing by himself as a lone nine. So because of that, I think I want to see what Rebels can do with this. And it seemed like the players were not satisfied of how the coach handled that situation. So what can they do to maybe put that behind them and say, hey, this is going to unify us. We're going to play better. We're going to go out here. We're going to play a great game. And then Houston, they come from completely smacking, for lack of a better word, the LA Galaxy. I love what Ivan Franco's doing. Ache feeling really good with himself. I like what Arthur has become in this 4-3-3. The defense holds up. I think that they weren't really exposed because the LA Galaxy were so terrible, but I think that they have enough to battle, and they're a team that I told you I was in orange. I wasn't really ready to give them the yellow light, so I'm still orange. I'm still not yellow quite yet, but I really like what they have. I think it's going to be an interesting game because of the narratives, because of everything that I just mentioned.
NYC even money plus 100 at the U12 pitch in the Bronx up against Nashville SC. Anybody that goes in there, you're lucky to come out of there with a draw. Atlanta United did last week. I don't know about Nashville. They're going to the Bronx.
I think draw is the name of the game. I think Nashville over there, Tallis has played better, but has had a lot of problems when teams get deep on them and they don't allow certain spaces. So I think Nashville, if they can do something, is wrap up a young nine with a lot of experience in that position. Santi's going to be a big factor, right? But I think Nashville, with a guy like Gary Smith that's going to just strategize you to death, I would take the draw on that one for sure.
And you know, a guy like Gary Smith, he's going to be very, very happy to hear you say that.
Oh, man, Niko. I love that accent, man.
Prolonged exposure to Gary. Toronto hosting Atlanta. What do you think?
That's an interesting one as well, because it can be such a mix of things, right? It could be a 4-4 game. It could be a blowout where Atlanta just dominates Toronto. Obviously, Ibarra got that red card in last game. It's who's going to replace him, how that's going to play out. That's interesting. I was a little underwhelmed by Atlanta's play against New York City, especially when they were in the final third. They held possession. They moved the ball well. But I wanted to see them be more decisive in that final end, and they really weren't. I think New York City gives you certain spaces that maybe other teams don't, and they weren't able to really take advantage of that. So against Toronto, it's a tough one for me, but I'm going to go with Atlanta. I'm going to go with the win, and I think it's another feel-good game for them after a so-so performance against New York City.
No Dio, no Hedges, no Vasquez. Insigne available, but according to Bob Bradley, he's only going to play likely a few minutes if he plays at all. So that's what you're looking at. Looks like it's Bernadeschi or bust when it comes to Big Red. 8:30 starts. Austin and Vancouver at Q2, and Austin is a minus 102. Vancouver, after getting waxed in the midweek 3-0 for the second time in a row by LAFC, they are a plus 254. Fire and Union, what do you think about this one? Fire's at a plus 158, a slight favorite.
Fire's been surprising, man. Fire has found momentum and has, I think, in the back of Kei Kamara and a guy that's just like wine when it comes to scoring goals and just gets better with age, and 141 goals now. Probably going to put a couple in this one, depending on what lineup the Philadelphia Union put out there. Philadelphia hasn't been amazing in MLS play. They're obviously very invested in CCL. Blake's been back. Blake's been fantastic. He saves the Union several times against Atlas. So that's going to be an interesting one. But I think Chicago is playing well. They finally got rid of, funny enough, the Shavilko experiment, and they went with Kai. But now Shavilko playing against his old team, I mean, it might be interesting to watch. But I think Chicago gets it, man. Philadelphia, I always said, no matter who you are, no matter what team, maybe LAFC is the uh, exception. But when you're playing CCL, man, it's tough to play domestic play.
Dallas and RSL, we can pretty much skip over that one. Dallas, one of the more prohibitive favorites of the week.
I'm tired of being disappointed by Dallas. Dallas and Austin, I'm not watching this weekend. I said it.
And nothing in the state of Texas for you except for maybe Houston at Red Bulls. Minnesota United is hosting the Purple team. Minnesota United's a plus 106. They're finding ways to win.
That's going to be a yawner. Oh, that's going to be a yawner. I mean, unless the Purple team can go out there and use the ability of every player in that midfield, and you really get a big scoring game for Orlando, is going to be a sleeper. I mean, if there's something that Adrian Heath has done well, is basically tell this team, nobody thinks we can do it. Everybody's doubting us. We're going to play pragmatic. We're going to find ways to win. We're going to find ways to get results. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a sleeper hold because Orlando has the tendency to, at times, play to the tempo of the opponent. Instead of playing their own game, they really go by what the opponent gives them, and then he gets really slow and he gets really stagnant, and the forwards don't get the ball enough, and it becomes this sloppy game. So I think that was going to be a good one for a draw as well.
All right, so then that leads us to activity. St. Louis, Cincinnati. Does St. Louis lose their fourth in a row?
Ooh, that's a good one. Give me the numbers on that one because that's an interesting one. But by the way, I'm going to be in Las Vegas this weekend. Ooh. So I might just do a little extra juice boxes over there. But give it to me. What are the numbers on that Cincinnati game?
St. Louis City SC is a plus 129 in the composite. Your draw is a plus 250. FC Cincinnati is a plus 200.
Oof. Man, I don't really love those numbers necessarily. Look, I think Cincinnati has found a way to just get results, no matter what. When they don't have possession, when they're not playing well. Yes, Brenner's probably looking down in Italy now, and that's going to be done and over with. But Brandon Vasquez is really the go-to there up top. I don't think that they'll struggle because they pressured themselves. That Cincinnati can pressure just as well as St. Louis can. They're just a little bit different. They press with their wingbacks really high. So I think they can give St. Louis some struggle. I'll take Cincinnati in this one just because I'm not in love with the numbers for St. Louis either. But in terms of just soccer in general, I think that Cincinnati is a team that can win when plan A doesn't work. And St. Louis just showed us in Seattle that if plan A don't work, they have no idea what's going on. Not to mention that team is exhausted. A lot of guys came off with injuries because of that style of play. So, yeah, I think Cincinnati takes this one for sure. And maybe it's even a get-well game because they haven't played amazing. They haven't played great. They've been getting results, but maybe in this one they can get a couple.
Cascadia, what do you think?
Woo! We got to the big game this weekend, maybe a little bit diluted because of the injuries, but man, two different approaches here. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about, talk to your fan base in this West Coast rivalry. Two different approaches. You look at Giovanni Savares's camp, and they got supporters in practice. They are talking about the Cascadia Cup. They have a guy giving the team, a fan of one of the supporters giving this speech to the team. You got Gio Savarese talking about, we don't really like this team. We're going to really play it hard. And on the other hand, Seattle is saying, we're up here. Number one, it's just another game. Jackson Reagan told me, quote unquote, this is an important game for them, especially right now, because they're looking for a game that can create momentum, a bounce back game, a game shifter, right? A momentum shifter. So it is more important for them. So it's really interesting the way this is playing out, because I think that Seattle plays better with that mentality of we're just going to go out there, we're going to play our game. Now, with that said, it's a hard place to go and win, and it's a hard place to deny that Gio Savarese has had Seattle's number in his reign as coach. And after they came to Seattle and spoiled the CCL championship ceremony for this team, they probably feel pretty good about having Seattle's number. So regardless of the injuries, regardless of the moment that Portland is having, they're going to go out there with everything. And one thing that does concern me, and giving you a little bit of insight, is Seattle has a couple of players that are not injured, but I felt like they're not 100%. Albert Rusnak came off kind of limping a little bit. Josh Atencio didn't see in practice, which is a little bit concerning. So those two are two important pieces there for this team. And the biggest one, John, Jordan Morris, Leo Chu, do they start again? Because, look, Raul Ruidiaz is a guy that's going to be a team player. He's going to tell you, yes, we're all rah, 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 we're going to get this. But he also has a pride. He has an ego. He's the top scorer all time of this club. He wants to start. So I'm really curious if Brian Smetzer rolls out the exact same formation, how Raul Ruidiaz is going to take this. Because if I was Brian, and now he's obviously one of the best coaches in the league, the best coach this club has ever had in terms of championships and what he's been able to accomplish. But I would handle that situation very carefully, because you don't want to hit the ego of a player that has done so much for you and you might need as much as you can. So that's something to watch this weekend.
Question from Jason Nix in our Twitch pitch, and he wants to know, is this the last season for Gio Savarese in Portland?
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I understand that maybe the results haven't always been there, but he's a guy that the supporters have embraced heavily. He's a guy that's given this team a different identity, a fire that they really need, but in a more balanced way than maybe when they had with Caleb Porter, right? Because that was a little bit, he got out of hand at times. I think Gio fires the team well in various senses, and he's someone that very under the radar is trying, maybe not successfully so far, but he's trying to develop a lot of younger players and maybe commit more of the club's resources into developing that young program in Portland. So because of that, because I really do think that the front office needs at least a little bit of continuity in their general sense of a club, I think it's going to be there for a long time still. I'll be surprised if it was to go anytime soon. I see them there at least till 2024, 2025.
And no Eric Williamson also to add to the 72 inches.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So he's dealing with a lot, and that's something that Gio's had to deal with over his tenure of the last 3 years, right? Blanco gone, getting the replacement for Valeri. Now Williamson's out for the season. And there's going to be a generational change here coming up for this Portland team, because you can only use Diego Chara for so many seasons before the wheels fall off that bus, even if he's amazing and he seems to never get old. So there are some things that need to change there in Portland, and I think that Gio is the guy to do it.
And selfishly, in my fantasy team, I have Jordan Morris, Niko Lodeiro, Alex Roldan. Those are my 3 Seattle players that I have this week. So
I think there's some safe picks, my friend. Absolutely. All 3 of those are safe picks. All 3 will be starters. All 3 will be important. We spoke to Alex Roldan about this rivalry, about him watching the rivalry from the stands, watching his brother do it and the way he's kind of changed. I think Alex is someone who's earned that right back position, and it's just a pleasure to watch him play it. Has one of the best services in the team, and that's why they get him forward as high as he does. So yeah, that's all good picks.
Yeah, and Jason, in his follow-up, Jason Nix goes, I get that Savarese is popular. I just wonder when fans get impatient.
Yeah, no, and that's still to be seen. But I think that maybe to your point, if there's a stronger hold keeping him there, is all of the problems that the front office has had.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they have the mind to go out there and look for something else. I mean, he has the keys to a lot more than people know. I'm not sure how much people know of how in control he is of players who come in, players that are scouted. I mean, he's in a different part than, let's say, Brian Smetzer when it comes to those sort of situations. So yeah, I think that Gio has a lot of power in that club, and therefore is probably going to get a lot of leadway. But yeah, I mean, results kind of are the name of the game. But it's kind of hard to look at Gio today and say, why aren't you winning more games? I mean, you look at that roster and you see why not. And if you really think about it, they've earned some points when maybe they didn't deserve it or no one thought they could get them. And that's part of that Gio Tavares' strategy and his ability to motivate this group.
San Jose at PayPal Park is a plus 114 hosting Sporting Kansas City, and the weekend ends with El Trafico in Carson, California. No shock, LAFC is favored at a plus 140. Galaxy are a plus 181. How bad could this one get?
I mean, this is the don't get embarrassed Trafico for Greg Vanney. I mean, that's literally what it is. You are going to have to completely change what you've been doing, play more pragmatic, realize that not only you haven't had the players to do what you wanted to do with a healthy roster and everybody there. Now you don't have two key players. You don't have Cáceres. You don't have Costa, who you were hoping to be a guy that is going to be a guy you bring in from the bench and just make things work for you. And he's your DP and all of these things. I like what Javier Hernandez said this week about they're going to play they're going to play to their best regardless of how many fans go. He respects the fans that are boycotting the team. I think that speaks well for Javier Hernandez. But in terms of soccer, man, they're completely outgunned. I mean, that's another team that's going to a knife battle with a wooden spoon. So it's going to be a hard one for him. I really do think that if Greg Vanney doesn't make adjustments, realizing that he doesn't have the tools to play this team on the field, and he has to come up with a way, a hook, a strategy to do it, then it's going to get nasty. It's going to get ugly.
And apparently, according to stories out west, looks like LAG fans are selling their tickets cheap to LAFC fans in Carson. And everyone is still not happy because of the Klein statement where he says, if they don't make the playoffs, I'm out. And you got all the LAG fans sitting there going, well, there's the door. You don't have to wait that long. LAG right now, it is. I mean, they're putting. I don't know if it's better to say they're putting the dis in dysfunctional or the function in dysfunctional right now. I don't. It
might be a little bit of both. Do you have the numbers on the over on that game? While you do that, I'll tell you why it's going to be a little bit difficult. But I think that LAFC is going to want to make a statement in this one. They're going to see blood, a team that's barely staying afloat, and they're just going to put their foot and drown them. I mean, this team has all the tools to expose everything that LA Galaxy do wrong and really put them away.
I've got Bouanga as my captain this week, which means it's double points.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. 1.5 is minus 476. 2.5 is minus 147. 3.5 is plus 164. 4.5 is plus 375. So that's
all right. I'll give me 4.
Okay.
Give me 4. I might put at least a little some on that 4.
4.5 is a plus 375. So keep that in mind as you go. Your 3.5 is a plus 164. They might make that by halftime. That's just me.
Oh, okay. No, I like that. I like that, man. I'm going to be doing a little bit of maybe risk taking when I'm in the city of Las Vegas, baby.
So what else is going on as you head to Las Vegas? What else is going on at Pulso Sports and Soccer Bar?
Oh, so I left some great content. We got Jackson Reagan talking about this whole week, Alex Roldan, Brian Smetzer. We talked to Nuhu this week as well. So check it out. If you want to get more of the inside of MLS in Spanish, and we talk about this Cascadia rivalry, a lot of debates. We bring in Armando from DT USA to talk to us about Inter Miami and this trade. So check out Soccer Bar as well. But that's kind of what we got on deck for you guys.
we went a full extra period this week when it came to Thursdays with Niko on a Friday at El Rolo NW. Please be safe when you head into all of the neon there in Las Vegas. Do not be distracted by all the shiny things. Just get there in one piece, get home in one piece, and we'll be back at you next week with another round of TWN.
I appreciate it, my friend. I'll try to stay safe out there for sure. So we'll have a good time, but we'll do it in a responsible way.
Yes, what he said. Since it's the end of the show, play it safe, everybody. We'll see you next week. That means I get to do this.